And Rings of Power has a huge scope. It's not just Numenor. There's a lot of locations. There are more than 20 main characters. There's a lot of storylines going at the same time. But for you, I'd like to know, what's the thing that connects everything? What's the heart or the engine of the show?
For me, the theme that has stuck out watching the episodes several times on this tour has been the beauty of creation and the healing power of beauty in creation. What is it for you?
I think for me, and we might sort of take some time in getting there, it's not always obvious, but there is that note of hope. You know, these are some sort of dark stories that we venture into, but there is that sense of there's a small little light, there's a small sense of hope, of optimism, and it's an interesting time to be telling this story. Here we are in 2022 doing this adaptation and beyond this time. And there's definitely been a lot of darkness, I think, in storytelling more recently, understandably so. But I think people also want to remember that there is a light, that there is hope, and a sense of, you know, you go through this adversity to then get to the other side. So I sort of latch on to that idea of that there's a hopeful note in this story.
You actually said it in your question. You said, what's the heart of it? And I think it is heart, isn't it? And the hope is in those small human interactions of love and loyalty and friendship and care for another that exist despite the epic events that everybody is subject to.
Power. But people's relationship to what power is and what type of power every character has. You have magical power, you have, you know, knowledge is power, you have physical power, etc., etc., etc. So I think that's one of them. I think there are many things, but I think that's something that comes to my mind anyway. Yeah.
I think friendship and community is something that stood out for me. You know, even those characters who might seem overtly quite lonely, it's the loss of that person, of that friendship. I mean, you see Galadriel at the start of episode 1 when her crew kind of leave and it's just her. And there's a moment that Morveth Clark plays so beautifully where she realizes it is just her. And I'm like, that is everything, because and I think that carries on. You see Durin and Elrond as well have that dynamic too of like friendship and kind of so I think that for me. Yeah.
Hope, I think. Like I think there's always loads of hope in Tolkien. And I guess that's one of the fundamentals of storytelling in his world.
Yeah, and I would also say, you know, you spend so much time immersing yourself as an audience and being introduced into these characters. The audience can already see the forces of potential evil swimming and sharking around, and we can already tell that, you know, the message is, one likes to think somewhere, somehow, the celebration of each of the races and cultures at some point potentially intertwining will be what will ultimately save us. So just a message of hope and coming together and seeing different worlds functioning in, of course, one big Middle Earth. Together, stronger.
That's a bit of writing that's on the Welsh football jersey.
But right now we're not.
And it's true to Middle Earth.
But right now we're not, are we?
No.
We're quite fractured
Yeah.
in Middle Earth. There, you know, no one's ever met the Half-Foots. Khazad Dûm is very secretive.
Yeah.
The elves are sort of like thinking that they can do anything, and you know, like there's it's quite a fractured Numenor. You know, nobody's been to Numenor in years, so it's they are quite independent, and I think the strength of Middle Earth is obviously when they all come together.
Connection. I think connection between races, between individuals. I think those things are always, that's what gives Shakespeare its longevity and Tolkien. It's when he focuses in, even with, for example, with Shakespeare, concentrating on a huge battle or war, it's always the domestic at-home details that audiences enjoy, because they see themselves there and they can, they can identify. And I think that's why his language is still global and will continue to be so.
You open a history book, and you open Tolkien and a history book side by side, and you see that any society that cuts themselves off from the global community at large festers and dies. And Tolkien understood that only when we come together, as complicated and as difficult as it may be at the time, it is necessary in order for us to survive and to thrive.